The Galactic Council Hall was a marvel, an echo chamber of empires. The dome, crafted from translucent alloy mined from neutron stars, refracted starlight through a prism of diplomatic ceremony. Ambassadors sat in ascending tiers, each species sectioned by breathable atmosphere and tolerance for gravity. In the center, the forum floor, a neutral space. Humans, recently granted observer status, occupied the outermost ring. They'd been given polite distance, token respect, veiled in suspicion. Mira Lennox, age 8, had no interest in politics. She sat beside her father, Ambassador Thomas Lennox, fidgeting in her miniature suit, kicking her feet beneath the bench. She'd been told to stay still. Instead, she followed the spiraling lights on the marble floor until they drifted too close to the central ring. "Stay close," Thomas warned under his breath. But Mira, ever curious, took a few quiet steps forward. That's when Officer Gervaxa moved. The Quillari enforcer, twice the height of a human, with glistening obsidian armor and six-jointed limbs, reached out. Without ceremony, without hesitation, he struck her across the face. The crack was sharp, final, and devastatingly human. Myra's body twisted from the force. She hit the ground hard, cheek reddening, her eyes wide. A breath caught in her throat, but she didn't cry. She simply stared at the polished floor beneath her, stunned. Gasps echoed from several corners of the chamber. Some delegates stood in protest. Others leaned forward, curious. Silence followed. Then came movement. Commander Elara Voss rose from the third row of the human delegation, slow and deliberate. Her black uniform bore no insignia, standard for Earth's off-world peace observers, but her posture screamed military. She didn't speak. Didn't even look at Mira. Her eyes were locked on Gervaxa. The Quillari officer stepped back slightly, not in fear, yet, but in vague acknowledgement of something having shifted. The council chair, a translucent being called Overell, shimmered into prominence. "Officer Gervaxa," Overell began, voice modulated for universal translation, "please explain your actions." "I responded to a security breach," Gervaxa said coldly. "The child violated perimeter protocol." "She's 8, Thomas Lennox snapped, rushing forward and kneeling by his daughter. "You struck an unarmed child on the council floor." Gervaxa shrugged with insectal calm. "Quillari law permits immediate correction of unauthorized proximity. Her species is still adapting to civilized norms." Elara stepped closer now. She hadn't spoken yet, hadn't raised a hand. Her calm was surgical. "That wasn't a correction," she said finally. Her voice was low and even, like a whisper dragged across steel. "That was assault." The chair flickered. "Let us pause." "No," Elara said. Everyone turned to her. "There's no pause," she continued. "There's no delay. A child was struck. That's not a matter for subcommittee. That's not negotiable. This chamber," Overell reminded, "is one of law and peace." "I know," Elara said, expression unreadable. "That's why I'm leaving it." She turned on her heel and walked out. No dramatics. Just footsteps echoing across the marble as she passed Mira, met the girl's eyes for half a second, and nodded once. Mira blinked, then exhaled for the first time since she hit the floor. The door sealed behind Voss. 2 hours later, on Gravitas Station, a military platform hidden in Lagrange orbit above the moon, Voss stood in a war room dimly lit by tactical projections. She was alone with an encrypted transmission from Earth. No one else needed to hear this. The display showed the crest of the Earth Defense Treaty Corps, then blurred into a rotating image of the Council chamber footage. The blow. The silence. Her face. The walkout. A message appeared in glowing red. Authorization granted, status changed from observer to active response agent. Proceed. No lecture. No debate. Voss tapped the screen once, and it dissolved. Her hand hovered over a case built into the wall. Inside was a set of matte black armor, lightweight, pressure-sealed, and shaped to allow swift movement in hostile environments. She slid into it like ritual. No fanfare. She opened a secure channel. 2 names only, Reyes. Assure. Operators. Loyal. Discreet. Meet me on deck 12. Mission briefing in 30 minutes. Bring quiet tools, she said. Message confirmed, came Reyes' voice. What are we doing? Enforcing a line, Voss replied. Back at the council hall, arguments burned like fire in a vacuum. The Quillari delegation stood defiant. We demand retraction. The child approached an active guard. Standard Quillari law. The council is not subject to Quillari domestic law, interrupted the Doran ambassador, a feathered serpent with golden eyes. Striking a child violates multiple accords. She was not yet a full representative, countered another delegate. Perhaps the incident was regrettable, but not actionable. A few species murmured agreement. Others remained silent. Thomas Lennox sat beside his daughter, both quiet. Mira leaned into him, head on his chest. Her cheek was still red, but her eyes remained dry. You know what happens next, don't you? She whispered. Thomas didn't answer. Somewhere above Viral Prime, the Gravitas transport module detached from orbit. It carried no diplomatic credentials. It would not be logged. Inside sat 3 humans. They wore no flags. They needed none. As they breached atmospheric drift, Reyes checked his pulse rifle. So, this is retaliation? No, Voss said without turning. This is precedent. Assure chuckled softly. Deathworlders teaching manners? Voss looked up the viewport. We're not here to teach. Just to remind them we're not prey. That night, while the council still argued over jurisdiction, precedence, and optics, a low drone moved through the misty back channels of the Quillari embassy. No alarms sounded. No cries were heard. Only silence, until it was broken by the low hum of a returning transport vessel, its exterior painted black, no markings, cutting back toward Gravitas orbit like a whisper through shadow. Inside a locked vault, Commander Voss sat alone. A metal container sat before her, sealed and cold. She looked at it once, then tapped in a code. The lid hissed open. A head rested inside, smooth, slick, unmistakably Quillari. Officer Gervax's eyes were still open. Shock forever etched on his face. Voss closed the container and stood. No celebration. No statement. Tomorrow, it would be delivered. But tonight, the silence was enough. The Quillari embassy compound stood at the edge of Viral Prime's diplomatic quarter, a cold bastion of polished basalt, unnaturally tall and narrow. Its walls shimmered with active defense fields and pulsed with biometric locks. Inside, alien staff moved with rehearsed precision, trusting their protocols, their status, and above all, their untouchability. But none of their defenses were designed to stop humans. Commander Elara Voss stood in a shadowed corridor below the compound's foundation. No cameras. No sensors. No life signatures. Her voice was flat through the comms. Assure, mark 3 points of entry. Reyes, override their AI cascade. Quiet entry. Minimal exposure. Acknowledged, Assure whispered. ETA 60 seconds, Reyes confirmed. Voss waited. Up above, Gervaxa reclined in his private quarters. No guards stood at his door, why would they? He had struck a lesser species child, and the council hadn't lifted a finger. No consequence, no trial. The humans would rage, and then recede. They always did. So far, every Deathworlder barked louder than they bit. He leaned back on his perch, sipping a thick, sulfuric fluid from a curved flask. His compound eyes scanned a legal archive, preparing arguments for a council hearing he fully intended to dominate. Then the lights flickered. Twice. On the third flicker, everything went dark. Reyes moved first, patching false energy readings into the security grid. Alarms remained silent, convinced nothing had changed. Assure slipped through a maintenance shaft, light as vapor, bypassing 3 checkpoints with surgical fluidity. Voss entered last, unhurried. They didn't speak. Jervaxa sat upright now. His room's emergency systems had failed to activate. No backup lighting, no motion alerts. Just thick silence and the slow throb of uncertainty. Then a voice, clear and human, cut through the dark. "You're alone." Jervaxa spun. "Who?" The wall hissed open. Voss stepped through. Her visor retracted, revealing her face. Calm. Focused. Cold. "Human," he spat. "You dare." She raised a hand. Not to attack, just to stop him. "You struck a child," she said. "You did it on record. You did it with intent. And you thought the Council would shield you." He stepped forward, claws flexing. "This is an act of war." "No," Voss said. "This is a message." Ashur and Reyes emerged from either side, silent as death. Jervaxa tried to move, toward the comm panel, perhaps, but Reyes was faster. A burst of electrical disruption flared at his feet. Not lethal. Paralyzing. Jervaxa collapsed, limbs locking in twisted angles. "I've faced better soldiers from hive-bred scavengers," Reyes muttered. Voss crouched before the fallen officer. "You want war," she said quietly. "You want a reason to paint humanity as monsters? Here it is. But remember this, we warned you." Jervaxa's mandibles twitched. "You're savages." "No," Voss whispered. "We're parents." The blade she drew wasn't ceremonial. It was carbon-forged, black as night, with a cutting edge so fine it sang through the air when she moved. The room dimmed as Ashur stepped back, granting her space. No screams followed. Jervaxa's eyes never closed. At precisely 0600 Galactic Standard Time, as the Council chamber prepared to reconvene, a single drone entered through the open skylight. Security didn't stop it, its IFF-matched diplomatic credentials. It hovered to the center, over the podium. Then it lowered its payload. A metal cylinder landed gently on the floor. It opened with a slow hiss. Inside, the severed head of Jervaxa, resting atop a folded Terran diplomatic sash. The room froze. Delegates rose from their seats in horror, curiosity, and disbelief. Overell's translucent form flickered to solidify. "Security, remove that." "Don't." The word came from Ambassador Thomas Lennox, who now stood at his bench, Mira silently beside him. Overell turned, trying to find grounding in protocol. This is a response," Thomas said. "Not a threat. Not a demand. Just a reminder." "Of what?" asked the Gorth ambassador, a reptilian being who hadn't blinked once. Thomas looked around, scanning the chamber. "That some lines don't get negotiated. Not with humans. Especially not where our children are concerned." Murmurs rose across the chamber. Some in anger, others in grudging admiration. A few nodded subtly. Overell struggled. "This is vigilante action, murder without trial." "And the strike on my daughter?" Thomas said. "Was that justice? Did you hold a trial then?" Silence. "No," he said. "You deliberated. You deferred. You called it cultural misunderstanding." He stepped down toward the center podium, his voice calm but unwavering. "You feared war. You feared escalation. You forgot that sometimes, fear is earned." The drone hovered again, waiting. It retrieved the container, resealed it, and silently ascended. Within seconds, it was gone. No trace. Just memory. On Gravitas Station, Voss sat alone, helmet off, eyes closed. Ashur leaned against a wall nearby, flipping a small silver coin between his fingers. "Do you think they'll retaliate?" he asked. "No," Voss replied. "Why not?" "Because they don't know how," she said. "Not against us." Reyes walked in with a datapad. "Council just issued a formal statement, investigating the cause of Jervax's death. No suspects identified. No formal charges pursued. Ashur chuckled. Translation: don't poke the humans. Voss stood and approached the viewport. Below, Earth shimmered in blue and gold. Good, she murmured. Let them think we're unpredictable. Let them guess. And if they hit again? She didn't answer right away. Then we stopped being precise. Back in the council hall, the debates didn't resume that day. Delegates filed out slowly. Some paused at the Terran section, offering nothing, just glances. A few respectful. A few terrified. Mira sat quietly, crayon in hand, drawing loops on her datapad. Her father sat beside her, hand resting gently on her back. Did she get in trouble? Mira asked softly. Thomas shook his head. Not our kind. Mira smiled. Good. The council chamber was unusually quiet the following morning. No debates. No new resolutions. No routine procedural wrangling over trade routes or migration quotas. Just silence, heavy and watchful. Jervax's seat remained vacant, his nameplate replaced with a thin strip of reflective metal. Not removed. Not acknowledged. Just there. A visual scar, left open and untreated. At the human delegation's bench, Ambassador Thomas Lennox sat stone still, eyes forward. Mira remained at his side, her small fingers wrapped around a stylus. She drew slow spirals on a holographic sketchpad. Her cheek had faded from red to a soft purple, a muted reminder of everything that had shifted. The council chair, Overell, flickered into semi-opacity at the podium. The silence dragged until it became impossible to ignore. We have received no communication from the Quillari Dominion, Overell began. They have not condemned the death of Officer Jervaxa. Nor have they requested justice. An elongated, aquatic delegate from the Vascarian League leaned forward. Because they're terrified. You misunderstand, said the ambassador of the Rill Ascendancy, his voice like wind through wires. They're calculating. They expected submission. What they received was doctrine. The words settled uncomfortably. Doctrine. No trial. No appeal. No second chance. Just consequence. Across Viral Prime, delegates whispered in private corridors. Statements were issued without signatures. Protocols were reviewed, not to uphold them, but to reinterpret them. The Terrans had acted. Swiftly. Surgically. Without warning. And the galaxy had blinked first. Gravitas Station drifted in geosynchronous orbit, cloaked from civilian scans but watched closely by every military satellite from here to Ganymede. Inside, Commander Elara Voss stood at the center of a tactical display, surrounded by flickering readouts of energy movements, fleet logistics, and diplomatic intercepts. A quiet chime indicated an incoming channel. Ambassador Lennox, she said without turning. You're early. The hologram stabilized. Thomas appeared, his face drawn but resolved. Behind him, Myra's laughter could be heard faintly. She was alive. Unharmed now. They wanted me to reprimand you, he said simply. Voss didn't answer. They wanted a statement from Earth, he continued. Something to calm the room. Something to distance us from what you did. And what did you say? Voss asked. Thomas's face didn't change. I said we didn't send you. Voss raised an eyebrow. I said Earth never gave you the order. That your actions were off-book, unsanctioned. I used every word they needed to hear to preserve the table we're sitting at. Her expression didn't flicker. You lied. He nodded once. Yes. I don't need protection. You weren't the one I was protecting. For a moment, neither spoke. Then Voss said, you did the right thing. So did you, Thomas replied. But if anyone asks, we never had this conversation. The channel closed. Voss stared at the blank display for a long moment before turning to Ashur and Reyes. Status? Ashur crossed his arms. No immediate threats. Quillari ships have retreated from neutral sectors. No mobilization detected. Reyes added, 3 smaller species requested informal talks with us. Off record. They want to know more about our philosophy. They're looking for protection, Voss said flatly. Reyes nodded. Or a spine. On the far side of Viral Prime, deep beneath the Council's central archive, the High Custodian of Protocol, an ancient being of silk and bone named Zartil, recorded the incident under a new classification, Unprosecuted Enforcement Response, Human Origin. The designation had no precedent. It didn't need one. 3 days later, the humans received a formal request for private audience from the Rinturan Coalition, one of the oldest Council members, previously indifferent to Earth's presence. The meeting was held in a neutral hall, guarded by human and Rinturan security. No weapons allowed. No interpreters. Inside, the Rinturan emissary, a tall, glimmering creature with mirrored skin, spoke first. Your commander's actions were not subtle. We weren't aiming for subtle, Thomas replied. They were effective. Good. The emissary paused, then leaned forward. We've had trouble with the Quillari ourselves, they said carefully. Border incursions. Trade manipulation. Cultural pressure. We've lacked leverage. Thomas met their gaze. And now? A pause. Now we know where to find it. On Earth, the media never learned the full story. Rumors swirled in back channels, but no images leaked. No names were released. Officially, Gervax's death was ruled an internal Quillari affair. Case closed. Unofficially, power had shifted. Every ambassador knew it. Every soldier felt it. You could only ignore Deathworlders until one of them stopped smiling. Commander Elara Voss walked a corridor of Gravitas Station alone, boots echoing in silence. She passed the names of fallen operatives etched in silver panels along the wall. No ceremony. Just record. She paused at a terminal, entered a code, and viewed her deployment file. A new note had been added by High Command. Status, cleared. Operative discretion validated. Mission archive sealed. No further action. She exhaled. Not relief, just the release of held breath. Behind her, a small sound. She turned. Mira Lennox stood there, oversized jacket swallowing her arms, eyes wide. Hi, the girl said simply. Voss crouched, suddenly unsure what to say. This wasn't the battlefield. This was different. Hi, Voss replied. You got him, didn't you? Voss didn't lie. Yes. Mira looked down. Good. He was mean. A pause. I drew you something. She handed over a sheet of digital canvas. It was crude, drawn in bright neon strokes, stick figures mostly. But in the center, a woman in black armor stood between a little girl and a large, angry creature with too many arms. Voss stared at it. Is that me? She asked. Mira nodded. You were bigger in real life, but I ran out of space. Voss smiled, small, real. Thanks. Mira gave a little wave and disappeared down the corridor, skipping. Later that night, Elara Voss sat alone on the observation deck, watching Earth rotate below. She didn't feel like a hero. She didn't need to. Somewhere, a child was still drawing. A threat had been silenced. And the galaxy had learned something it wouldn't forget. Humans weren't predators. They were protectors. And sometimes, those were the deadliest kind.